Stop. Read this before you listen to Jack Bogle's advice on investing overseas. Is it wrong to invest overseas? I generally believe that investing in foreign markets, especially emerging and frontier markets, give you a higher probability of success with high returns, greater appreciation, lower tax rates, and general diversification outside of your country. Now, of course, for a lot of people, the idea is scary because so many people believe that their country is the best place on earth and is the only safe place to invest. But to my surprise, when one investing legend came out and said that investing overseas was bad entirely, I'm going to comment on why he's wrong in this blog. Hey guys, it's Event to Go. If you want to learn more about me and how I can help entrepreneurs with investing, mindset, taxes and salesmanship, and general tips and tricks, then you can learn more by clicking the link here. The link will be in the description. The legendary investor that I am referring to is Jack Bogle. Now, Jack Bogle was the founder of the Vanguard Group, which pioneered the idea of low index funds, and his idea was that you could obtain better results by investing in basically stock indexes, rather than going out and paying people a much higher maintenance fee to pick individual stocks and things like mutual funds. Now, I'm not here to criticize Jack Bogle. He was obviously very successful in what he did and started a new trend in the investing world. Now you see all these different firms charging no commissions, very low spreads, and a lot of other good things. But I saw a video that was called Why Jack Bogle Doesn't Own Non-US Stocks, and I want to talk about what exactly it is he said. I'll give you the summary. The video says that Jack Bogle lived and invested in the United States, but the video said two key points. Number one, if you are invested in US stocks, you have international exposure because US companies sell all over the world. Now, certainly you're going to get exposure from those sales, but I don't think that would correlate to direct exposure to that country. So I don't believe that argument holds any weight. But the bigger issue was number two, in which he said the US is going to be the best performing market in the world going forward. Now, this may be a generally racial issue where obviously in Jack Bogle's lifetime, the United States was the perfect place to be. What I've talked about here is if you were born in 1984, the United States was the best place to be born. I believe the second one was West Germany. But if you look at Kuala Lumpur, it didn't look like this in 1984, but it does look like this now. You see 50-story buildings everywhere, and you see construction everywhere. So I say to myself, what once was, won't necessarily always be. And so the United States was the best place to invest for many years, and the stock market has had some very good years recently. And I'm not saying it's going to totally fall apart. But the idea that the United States is the only market to invest going forward, to me, is simply not true. I don't see a compelling case for that. So, what Jack Bogle does is list three markets as the basis for not wanting to invest overseas. The first market is the UK. His reason for not wanting to invest in the UK is that they have a weird political system, which I don't entirely understand what that means. The UK has done relatively well, and so I don't understand that. Market number two was Japan, and what Jack talks about is that it has a low growth economy, and he's right. They are also relatively anti-immigration, and they're not replacing themselves. It's an aging society. So, on that we agree on. Market number three was France. Okay, a little American French style bashing. We get it. I'm not for 34-hour work weeks either. But there are plenty of good companies that are in France. So those three markets, to me, don't represent the entire foreign market. Another thing he says is, don't think you're not investing in those markets. If you're invested in international index funds, international ETFs, or international stocks, because they're going to be in there. No doubt, I have a European income fund in my portfolio that's doing pretty well since it has a nice yield. Number one is, if you're not living in the United, a nice thing is that the European Union isn't chasing me down for 30% dividends tax on all my dividend income. However, the United States does. Now, I know people who are asset managers make the case that even after the 30% tax, which can be reduced based on where you live potentially, if you're paying taxes in that country, but you're going to be paying about 30% on US stocks, and even with that, you'll get better performance from US stocks in comparison to other countries. Personally, I haven't seen that trend in my portfolio. I have a European portfolio that does relatively well. It does have some French stocks in there that are some of the better ones. It also has some British stocks in there that I guess are some of the better ones too. So that particular fund has done relatively well. But I do have other funds. I have focus funds from many emerging markets that have done relatively well. I also have a Thai fund that's done miserably. I have plenty of Asia funds, and the example that every Asia fund is going to have Japan in it is incorrect. There is a whole category of funds that are Asia Pacific X Japan. Some of those have a little too much exposure to Australia for my taste. I want more of emerging markets that are growing, but you can make the same argument that Australian and Asia have a certain symbolic relationship. So, on the equity side, there are plenty of opportunities to exposure to funds that exclude. For example, you can be in pure play Asian funds and pure play Latin American funds. If you want to be in Europe, you can. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of funds that have exposure to the Slovenian equities. You're gonna be in those more developed countries, but I'm not sure that's an example to avoid. There are plenty of other options. I have exposure to REITs in Asia, real estate investment trusts. Also, there's plenty of different instruments I think that you can use. Now, here's where I also don't agree, and I think this is where the focus between someone who's a Jack Bogle and someone who isn't. You can go out and make direct investments into companies or real estate, or into any number of different mechanisms to invest into a country. Have exposure in real estate in Cambodia, for example, through a boutique fund. Have exposure to real estate in other countries by simply buying real estate. You can have exposure to companies in different countries by buying part of those companies that don't have platforms online. You can buy into startups. There are even golden visa programs in Europe for people who invest in startups, or other countries have an infrastructure where you can obtain residence or even citizenship by investing in their company. So, if you want exposure to just Turkey, you can go to Turkey. If you want exposure to a certain stock market that's hard to replicate through the usual international funds and exchanges, you can go and establish a brokerage account in that local country or in that region, since many countries don't have a big stock exchange. For example, I was in Armenia and I was asking a banker, so how many companies are on the Armenian stock exchange? And he said, no, I don't know, maybe around 12 or something. So, there's not a lot of robustness in that. But certainly, if you come to Asia, you can get an Asian Pacific focused brokerage account and you can trade Thai stocks or Singaporean stocks. Sometimes you can do it through a bank account in that country. If you get a Singaporean bank account, you can get exposure to Singaporean stocks and also Singaporean government securities, if that's what you're looking for. So, in conclusion, to me, there are many different ways to play in international markets. So to say that everyone's going to buy an index fund and you're going to be exposed to France and Japan, and that's it, you're just going to go down the toilets, is a little over the top. And with all due respect to a guy who has accomplished a lot, I think we are in a bold new world right now where there are so many new opportunities that didn't exist before. My suggestion is to have some equities and have some debt in your portfolio, if you want. But I see people getting much higher returns in what I think are much less riskier vehicles by owning government debt in pretty well run countries, or owning real estate in the middle of a city that's growing in a country that's heading in the right direction. To me, that's a lot more solid than simply putting your money into a mutual fund and hoping for the best. You get more control, you potentially have high returns, also you could have much better tax benefits, especially if you're not a US citizen. For me, the world has changed, and the idea that we're simply not going to invest internationally because there's nowhere else to get a good return is not true. Probably not then, and certainly not now. If you are wondering how I can help you more, there are 3 ways. Number 1 is by sharing this blog post with other like-minded investors, business owners and entrepreneurs. This is to make sure that we build a strong family that gives and shares, which will eventually turn into a large think tank of valuable information. Number 2, get a copy of my new book, Skills.Scale.Sustainability. You will learn a lot of my personal experiences and over 20 plus virtually unknown secrets to become an unstoppable entrepreneur. I have been studying other people's businesses for a long time, and in this book I reveal every single step-by-step method to secure your business in good and most importantly, bad times. You can get the link in the description below. Number 3, if you aren't sure where to start, but you want to hang out with me and learn from other like-minded entrepreneurs, then feel free to add me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest and YouTube. A bonus one is, if you need immediate help, want to skip the line to success, need to make more money online or offline ASAP, or build another income source that will last for years to come, put your name and email here and get started. Let's get started building your life and financial success. The link will be in the description below. And lastly, remember, greatness is within. Bye bye everybody, have a great day. This was from Event to Go.